part of our lives for the last 30 years. There was a man called Moshe who had 3 friends, Reuven, Shimon and Levi. He loved the first friend very much. They were soulmates. The second friend, Shimon, he loved less, but still a lot. And the third friend was an acquaintance rather than a friend, didn't really have much to do with the third friend. One day Moshe receives a summons from the king's palace, ordering him to come the next day to the king's palace. He was petrified. Maybe someone had slandered him to the king, and now he would be punished or killed as soon as he stood in front of the king. All he could think of was to call his best friend and ask, "Please, best friend, please come along with me to the palace. Please testify on my behalf what an outstanding citizen I am." Moshe went to his best friend Reuven and begged him to come with, but the friend turned away, ignored him, refused to come with. Moshe was shattered. Why did his best friend ignore him? Moshe left and went to plead with his second friend Shimon. The second friend agreed to come with Moshe to the palace, but refused to come in and testify. "As soon as we get to the palace, I'm going home." Moshe was very disappointed, but decided to ask his third friend Levi, even though he never had much to do with him. Moshe asked the third friend, "Will you come with me?" The third friend said, "Don't be worried. Not only will I come with you, but I will also be delighted to testify on your behalf in front of the king." Moshe was so relieved, and in fact the third friend came with and testified. This is a moshel brought down by the Chofetz Chaim in Avas Chesed. Says the Chofetz Chaim, each one of us is Moshe Rabbeinu, and the first friend is our most beloved friend, our money, our assets, our financial status. When Hashem calls us and summons us, the Achamer Esvin, to his palace to give din v'cheshbon on everything that we've done, we will beg our best friend, our money, our assets, to come with and protect us. But on Yom HaMisa, the money disappears, is useless to us. The second friend, the one that we like, but not as much as the first friend, represents our children and family. Says the Chofetz Chaim, they are prepared to come to the Beis HaKvoros. They accompany us to outside the palace of the king, but then they take their leave and depart, leaving us alone to enter the palace of Hashem. The third friend, who in this world we don't take much notice of and rarely appreciate, is our Torah, our Masim Tovim, our Gemilas Chesed, that we have carried out during our lifetime. Not only will this unloved friend in this world accompany us to the Beis HaKvoros, but will also proudly testify Lifnei Kisei HaKavod, detailing all the good that we achieved in this world and how we achieved great things through our Limud HaTorah. Says the Chofetz Chaim, how important it is for each of us to generate as many friends, as many chaverim, or advocates for ourselves in this world by multiplying our acts of tzedakah and Limud HaTorah in order to generate millions of mitzvahs that will accompany us on our final journey in front of the Kisei HaKavod. R Yechiel was a very, very special man who generated not millions, but trillions or zillions of mitzvahs from all his Limud HaTorah, his shiurim, his chaburas, his chesed. When he arrived in Shomayim, they came out to meet him and said, "Hi, Kavra Rabba, welcome to this great man. On behalf of the Chabura, I can really say we have lost a unique Rebbe and a very unique friend." Let's talk a bit about R Yechiel and learning. He has such a big cheshek to pass over his incredibly broad and wide Yidiyah and Torah to everyone. Whilst engaged at Kollel for 14 years, he wanted to start teaching a daily Daf Hayomi shir to Yeshiva Bachman. So about 15 of us started the shir in November 1982, just after the 8th Siyum Hashas. The Gated Rosh Yeshiva wouldn't let us learn Daf Hayomi during Yeshiva Seder time, so we had to learn every night starting from 11:30 till 12:30 midnight. And what a brilliant shir R Yechiel gave night after night after night. It's very tough keeping guys awake at midnight, but he achieved that every night with his Chedushei Torah, his crystal clear explanations, and his stimulating stories. I look at the notes at the side of my Gemaras today, which I learned Rabbi Yechiel, and I'm amazed at the variety of the Perushim and the explanations that he gave. His reputation spread, and he also started giving tish on Friday night to his growing bunch of Talmidim. And that's where we first got to know and admire Rebbetzin Levenberg for always providing so much scrumptious food and nash to the very hungry, always yeshiva bochum. He gave Daf Yomi in Gateshead for 2 years, every night, from 11:30 till 12:30 midnight. And then he accepted the role of Menahel to Menorah Grammar School in London. No other local Rov took much interest in the 20 or 25 university students, all of whom had left yeshiva after 2, 3 or 4 years, but wanted to learn every night in a Chabura. Along came Rabbi Yechiel, recognized the opportunity, and started the Chabura, where about 24 guys, about 12 chavusas, learned together every night in Eitz Chaim Yeshiva. Rabbi Yechiel gave shir regularly as well as tish every Friday night. We felt his love for us in so many different ways, including the occasion when we arrived one evening at Eitz Chaim to find the door locked and the lights off. It transpired that the shamas of the yeshiva did not want his yeshiva associated with university students and preferred the place to be locked up and the lights off rather than us using it. Rabbi Yechiel immediately swung into action. He contacted the main financial backer of the yeshiva and asked him a very simple question. Do you prefer the yeshiva locked up every night, lights switched off and closed, or would you prefer 24 young guys learning 2 hours a night? That night, the financial backer came to the yeshiva, ordered the doors unlocked, and Noch even provided cake and drinks every night as encouragement for more students to join. For those of us who at that stage didn't know Rabbi Yechiel, this clearly showed his ability not only to get things done, but also his loyalty to his Chabura. Later on, he started a minyan in his house in Princes Park Avenue. And again, loyal Talmidim supported it and came to daven, and afterwards schmoozed with him about anything and everything. And always by his side was his loyal Rebbetzin, who supported him throughout, always providing the Gashmias food for Friday night tish, Yom Tov meals, Purim parties, to enhance Rabbi Yechiel's ruchnius and his Divrei Torah. Rebbetzin Levenberg always provided sensible advice when discussing problems, providing her very special insight and expertise into the various communal and other matters that Rabbi Yechiel dealt with on such a regular basis. Furthermore, Rabbi Yechiel was always so interested in everyone's development, in everyone's problems, in their personal challenges. And all of us asked him our shilas, as he always answered the shilas immediately from his huge idea and knowledge, and always quoted the makar, the source of where it was coming from, even without having to look anything up. On the occasions where something was osur or not kosher, he always gave practical suggestions how to do something better or in the correct way. As mentioned earlier, he had the connection with so many Gedolim, with Rav Moshe Feinstein in his young days, and he always spoke with such reverence about Rav Hutner and Rav Chaim Shmulevitz, Zecher Tzadik Livracha. He knew Gedolim, he absorbed their Torah, and he passed it on to the younger generation. He was frequently on the Federation based in, dealing with many complex financial matters, and yet, due to his huge bekias and intellect, he immediately chapped what the issues were involved and what the Baalei Din were trying to achieve. He usually knew the answer immediately, or else looked it up and came back to you within hours. I have so many stories about shilas that I asked Rabbi Yechiel, but one story stands out, mainly because it also shows Rabbi Yechiel's very wicked sense of humour. When Simon Sainsbury, of the famous Sainsbury supermarket family, died, his family invited me to the funeral. As I looked after the accounts and personal tax for the Sainsbury family for many years. The problem was that the family chose the famous Westminster Abbey next to the Houses of Parliament for the Levaya, and expected me to attend. I phoned Rabbi Yechiel to ask whether I could go into the Abbey, due to the various statutes and crosses and everything, also the various Avodah Zorah there. Rabbi Yechiel said, that's an interesting shaila. I haven't been asked that one before. And he said he would research it, and he phoned me back a few hours later telling me I could not go into Westminster Abbey due to the various crosses and avodah zarah there. As usual, in Rabbi Yechiel's usual way, he said, you can't go in, but practical advice, Manny, is that you should stand at the entrance to the Abbey at the beginning of the funeral in order that all the Sainsbury family see that you're there, and then I should disappear, go for a walk, and later on reappear at the entrance to the Abbey when the family come out so that they see that I'm there. The joke part was, he then joked with me that a few minutes after I had asked him my shaila about Westminster Abbey, Rabbi Yechiel's phone rang, and the head of the Sephardi and Portuguese Kehillah in London, Rabbi Dr. Avraham Levy, requested, Rabbi Yechiel, can I also please ask you a shaila? Bear in mind, of course, that Rabbi Dr. Avraham Levy could have asked his own Spanish and Portuguese bayonim or rabbonim of any other Kehillah, and yet the telephone number he called was Rabbi Yechiel, because he knew Rabbi Yechiel's vast knowledge. Asked Rabbi Levy to Rabbi Yechiel, I've been invited to a funeral in an abbey. Can I attend, or is there a problem with crosses? Immediately, without hesitation, Rabbi Yechiel answered, is it Simon Sainsbury's funeral at Westminster Abbey? Rabbi Levy was stunned, flabbergasted, and said to Rabbi Yechiel, I realise that you know people across 5 continents, but how did you immediately know that the funeral I was referring to was Simon Sainsbury and that it was in Westminster Abbey? All I said was an abbey. Answered Rabbi Yechiel, well, you see, Simon Sainsbury and I share the same accountant. There was stunned silence from Rabbi Levy, and then he said, I didn't know you were on the same financial status as the Sainsbury family. You are even more unique, Rabbi Yechiel, than I thought. Rabbi Yechiel loved this story and repeated it regularly. Although we learned so much from Rabbi Yechiel, we all treated him as a friend, as well as a Rebbe. Someone to talk to about problems, someone who understood the issues as he watched all of us grow up, from being post-yeshiva boys going through university years, growing through the shidduch process, married life, having kids, and our own kids growing up issues. Then incredibly, Rabbi Yechiel established relationships with the next generation. He was able to deal with our kids. They felt so comfortable talking to him, phoning him up and confiding in him with their problems and issues. He could deal with people of all generations. He was always there for us at all times of day and more frequently night. Even our wives called him frequently with their own shilas, problems and issues to deal with, and later on our sons and our daughters did likewise. Whenever we needed shidduch inquiries, who else to call but Rabbi Yechiel? Whether the girl came from Australia, Brazil, US, or even the moon, Rabbi Yechiel had a contact there, and usually found out within 24 hours with a full report. And with Rabbi Yechiel, he didn't beat around the bush. He didn't give woolly answers. He gave it to you straight. He said, either this is suitable for you, or don't go anywhere near this. When we needed practical chosm lessons, he was the natural choice for so many bochrim. When suggestions came in for my kids, I immediately asked his advice, and he always gave practical guidance. A girl from an American-Israeli family in Telstone was suggested for my son. I phoned up Rabbi Yechiel. I said to him, it's unlikely you may know this family. They're from Telstone. But try, please, find out. A couple of hours later, Rabbi Yechiel phoned me to say his daughter in Neve Yaakov lived next door to the family's brother, and I can give you full details, take notes. I called him once about a boy in Toronto. He called me back within less than an hour. I have family in Toronto. They've immediately told me all about the family and the great-great-grandfather, etc. I called him once about a boy in Johannesburg. He phoned back that one of his chavrusas from Reb Chaim Berlin Yeshiva now went down to Johannesburg. Here's the detailed information. He knew everyone across the globe. What about the chesed that Rabbi Yechiel achieved during his life? As mentioned earlier, the family may know a little bit of what Rabbi Yechiel got up to over the last few years and how many people he helped. I know a bit, having looked after his financial matters for a few years, and therefore client confidentiality prevents me from telling you more. But as mentioned earlier, R Yechiel paid for his parents' old age home costs for many, many years, and live-in carers 24 hours a day in Lakewood. And as the Americans will know, that ain't cheap. Yet he happily paid in order to give his elderly parents the menuchas hanefesh that they needed and he wanted them to have. On Sundays, Hanukkah, light and candles are a very important part of Jewish life. We use candles Friday night, Havdalah, Hanukkah, Yom Tov, and Beis HaOvel, and also on Yahrzeit. One of the many reasons given is because Klal Yisrael are compared to a candle which flickers. We are always flickering. Sometimes the flame is stronger, then it gets weaker. We are attacked by the winds and goyim from all directions, and yet with Siyata Dishmaya we remain alight. What keeps the flame of Klal Yisrael alight? It's the limit HaTorah of Talmidei Chachomim like R Yechiel. If I give you a £10 note, you have the note now, I don't have the note anymore. But Hashem gives us from his Oitza HaChesed, and he still has much more to give, because of the principle of Ner LaEchad Ner LaMe'ah. One candle can light hundreds of other candles, and the original candle stays alight. R Yechiel, our dear R Yechiel, we remember the impact of your limit HaTorah on us for so many years. Whether Daf Yomi in Gateshead, whether it was Gemara Beitzah or Makkas over the years of the Chabura in London, whether it was the Shabbos Divrei Torah at the Friday night Tishon, whether it was the Divrei Torah at the Minyan in Princes Park Avenue, or whether it was the Shabbos HaGadol droshes. As always, we only appreciate the depth and breadth of your knowledge, R Yechiel, in halacha when we ask a shaila nowadays and we don't get an immediate answer, whereas you knew immediately and brilliantly and always quoted the Makar. A well-known story is told of a Captain Plum, a US fighter jet pilot who flew 74 missions in Vietnam during the war. On his 75th and final sortie, he was shot down by the enemy over Vietnam. Thankfully, he parachuted out, but spent 6 years in enemy captivity until the end of the war, when he became a well-known personality, lecturing around the US about his war experiences. A few years later in a restaurant, a man approached him and asked, "Are you Captain Plum?" He answered, "Yes." Asked the man, "Do you remember me?" But Captain Plum said, "Sorry, I don't remember who you are." Said the man, "I saved your life." Captain Plum said, "I'm really sorry, I don't remember." Said the man, "I was a sailor on the fighter ship, and before each of your flights, I packed your parachute in your rucksack on your backpack, and you used that to eject from the fighter plane before it crashed. I saved your life." Captain Plum was really embarrassed. No doubt he had met this sailor so many times on the ship, but he had never taken any notice of him, because that sailor was a lowly sailor and Captain Plum was an important fighter pilot. Said Captain Plum, "We must learn to take more notice of the people who have influence on our lives. Literally, they pack our parachutes for us and they save our lives on many occasions." R Yechiel, for all your Chabura and for all your Menorah Grammar School Talmidim and everyone who has learned so much from you, you have packed our parachutes for life. You have been a major hashpah on all of us for so many decades. We have all lost a wonderful Rebbe, a wonderful friend who had great emunah on Hashem and passed this on to his Talmidim. He had a deep and lasting impact and influence on so many of us, our wives, our children, and helped so many shidduchim in sorting problems. We miss you greatly, and in Yitzhak Hashem you should be a Melitz Yosher for all of us, and for your wonderful wife who stood at your side for so many decades, supporting you and your 6 lovely children.